I left a little bit of time on my table. I just wanted to make a brief comment. If we're going to reach economically disadvantaged students, you definitely need choice. You need all 5 of the models operating. Inside of the traditional business, inside of the traditional public school model, though, you have to almost reinvent yourself, because the customers are dramatically different than they were decades ago. They've become far more diverse, far more economically disadvantaged. And I could give you a discussion about the economic disadvantage piece, and I may, if depending on how much time I have left, but I designed a school by looking at best practices. You can reinvent the public school system as one of the effective models, but let me tell you what you have to do. You have to have parent commitment. That's one of the 5 pillars. If the parents won't come to you, you have to go knock on their door. You can't do any of the models without parent commitment, but you especially can't do the traditional public school model without parent commitment. In a private school, you see the parents every day because they drop the kid off in the classroom and they pick them up. It's a little bit different. So there's lots of opportunities for parent engagement. Number 2, you have to have intense positive character education. You see the difference? A student will never reach back and take hold of great teachers in great schools without having the internal set of instincts, the character traits that causes them to reach back. You see? Behavioral scientists have already told us there are 6 or 7 character traits that are most correlated with classroom success. There's 6 or 7 of them. And guess what? It's those same 6 or 7 character traits that are most correlated with life success. There's just 6 or 7 of them. Life was not meant to be extremely complicated, right? Otherwise, if it was all about poverty, none of us would have made it, because the Puritans, and virtually all of them, came over here with nothing but the clothes on their back. But they still made it. What was the difference? The difference was an internal set of character traits that were taught back then but are not taught now. That's the missing piece. So, number 3, if you're going to rebuild the traditional public school to educate economically disadvantaged kids, you have to have extended learning time. See, when you don't know how to, when you haven't mastered a subject, how do you master a subject? You spend more time on the task. It's what rich families do. They either A, help their kids, or B, go buy the counseling or the tutors to do it, right? That's called time on task. So you have to have, throughout the school day, you have to have 2 blocks of math, 2 blocks of science, and 2 blocks of English, right? That's the 3rd pillar. Number 4, you have to have strong campus leadership and powerful teacher collaboration. Because you're dealing with very economically disadvantaged students, you have to have powerful teacher collaboration where they're conversing about the student longitudinally over time.
With high expectations.
With high expectations, but those expectations come from campus leadership. If you don't have a principal who has the passion that I have, they shouldn't be there teaching in that student population. You got to live it, breathe it, and walk it. Not perfectly. None of us are perfect people. So that's 4 pillars. Let me tell you the 5th pillar you have to have if you're going to reach economically disadvantaged students in the traditional public school model. You have to have a commitment to a new mission statement. Okay? Here's the mission statement. And you measure all activities in the school against the mission statement. If it doesn't support the mission statement, you don't do it. What's the mission statement? You got to have every child commit to a technical school, a 2-year college, or a 4-year college. And what do I mean by technical school? That can be military, first responders, police. Everything, if it doesn't support the absolute commitment that every student will go to a technical school, a 2-year college, or a 4-year college, you don't do it. You see? Because if you're going to move from one class to another, you have to have savings. Without savings, you can't move from one class to another. And savings comes, you save money through productivity, by being more productive. And that productivity is not from labor, it's from this productivity, knowledge labor, right? So I'm telling you, we're going to have to really transform the traditional public education model, of which I am a fan of, okay, as one of the 5 business models. I have Duncan Klusman that leads Spring Branch ISD, Alton Fraley who leads Katie, and Mark Henry who leads Sci-Fair. They do a stellar job, gentlemen. They really do, with many of these economically disadvantaged populations. So put me down as an all of the above guy, please. That's the new business model. Those 5 pillars, you have to have in order.
Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions from the audience.
Representative Bohack, we're once again back into the legislature trying to get a school choice bill passed. Tell us why you think it's so hard, and what would your advice be to break through this year to get something passed?
You want to know the truth? It's economics. You have a lot of rural legislators who their largest employer are public school districts. That's it. They will tell me offline, Dwayne, you're right. You're right. Students would be most advantaged by the parents having choice, but I can't vote for that bill. That's it. The superintendents, the school boards, they represent too many school districts, and those school districts are powerful employers. So it's not even really about the policy. It's really just about they don't want to challenge, don't want to spend any political capital making the case for school choice. For school choice, that's really it. You got a lot of rural Ds, rural Republicans and Democrats. It's not really about party, by the way. It's about whether you're rural or urban. The urbans favor choice because we've seen.
Here's a map of the failing schools in Texas. It's not all urban. You can see it clearly.
I understand, and I like it all over Texas. But you ask a question, I gave you the answer. It's really about the employment centers that are the school districts.
Okay. I've heard that one before.
I'd like to thank the panel again for being here and the work and the research. My name is Eleanor Vasali. I'm the former public school teacher in one of Representative Bohack's districts, Spring Branch. I'm unwaveringly pro-school choice, pro all of the above. The people that I mainly have contact now, where I live in College Station and that I try to convince on the school choice argument, I would say are probably middle to upper class white. And their main issue, I can argue what about the public schools? I can argue against that because I've seen behind the curtain, and so I know. The one issue that has come up of late is, especially when it concerns private schools maybe being involved in the school choice option, is would then the government, because the money or whatever it may be is following the student into this private school, would then the government be able to follow that and reach in? I know school choice has often involved private schools. I haven't heard that before, but maybe because due to our experience with government in the past years, that's a conscious fear in people's minds is government overreach. So how do I argue against that, convince them? What is your opinion on that?
Lance?
I think that's a very important point. I know that, for example, in California, we had a number of different ballot initiatives to give universal school choice vouchers to people in middle-class areas. And again, from certainly a significant slice of people, there was that worry about the control by the government then shifting from public schools to private schools. And one of the ways the authors of the initiatives dealt with that issue to basically build a firewall between private schools and the government is to say that any increased regulation of the private schools after the passage of this initiative would have to achieve a supermajority in the legislature. So you'd have to achieve like 80% majority in the legislature to increase any regulation of the private sector. And I don't know how it is in Texas. I know in California, you can't get 80% to agree on anything. You can't get them to agree that this is the month of March. So I think that's one way we addressed it. I do think, just really quickly, that your point about it being difficult to convince people in middle class areas about the importance of school choice is the reason why I wrote this study, and also it's also the reason why school choice in places like Texas have such a hard time advancing. I got the idea to write this study and a series of studies in different states on the problem of middle-class schools because several years ago I attended a school choice conference in Mexico, actually. And our main speaker was the political analyst Dick Morris. Now, I wondered at the time, why was Dick Morris talking to all of these school choice proponents? I mean, I never heard him talk about school choice on any aspect. And it turned out he gave the best political presentation on school choice that I've ever heard. And what he did was he put up the map of the United States, and it's that typical political map, right, divided between blue and red. Right? He said, look at the red area, and of course, like what, 80% of the landmass of the U.S. is red. He says, now all of you, tell me where in that red area do you have statewide school choice vouchers or education savings accounts or tuition tax credits? Like no place, right, at that time anyway, right? And he said, the reason why is that you people, talking to all of us activists, have been focusing your efforts on the wrong political crowd, right? It's because while some demographic, like in low-income areas, really need school choice, you've never made the political case to the people in these red areas that they need it too. It's always then you're asking them to make the charitable case that help these other people, Whereas in politics, you have to have your own stake in it, right? You have to feel as though you would benefit from it too, right? And so you don't have to rely on altruism. And so that's why, we need to show that, it's not just the schools in El Paso, in poor El Paso neighborhoods. It's the schools in these leafy neighborhoods, that in the collar counties around Dallas, that where you need to make that case. Then, no matter what the superintendents in these rural areas might say, the parents then know that their kids aren't getting the education. Right now the wool is being pulled over their eyes that they're getting a great education in these schools, when in a lot of them they're not. And once they realize that, and you explain to them about these firewalls and things like that, then you're going to be able to build that coalition with Hispanics and other communities, to then have strong statewide types of school choice programs.
My name is Reina Drake, and I'm in Katy, Texas, but I grew up in Brownsville. Grew up in Brownsville, and so I can totally understand where you're coming from. Totally different. And my question is, who's going to drive the curriculum? Because I saw a vast difference between the way I got my education, because I came from LA, moved to Texas, to Brownsville, and I was going faster. I was ahead of everybody. That tells you how far behind Brownsville was, because I was in 3rd grade, but I was at 5th grade level. They weren't willing to put me because of age, so I was going with a group that was we all got followed all throughout high school. I mean, I was with the kids that were smart. Basically, they said I wasn't smarter. It's just I was reading. We had great instruction. My sister, on the other hand, she came in when bilingual education came in, and it was horrible. Her English was horrible. Her Spanish was horrible. My dad corrected the Spanish, but the English was horrible. And until I pulled her out of Brownsville, took her to Tulsa when I moved to Tulsa to go to college, and she was a year and a half totally with English speaking, no Spanish, except when we talked to her parents, and her English improved. Now she works for attorneys, she does translations, legal translation document, English to Spanish. Her English is great, her vocabulary, but my concern is, with all this stuff that's good, I mean, it sounds good, but like everything that sounds good, there's always caveats. The firewall is good if it's in writing, but who's going to drive the curriculum? Because I could see the difference between me and my sister growing up, and I see it now. Even you go to Brownsville, nobody speaks one language or the other. It's like Tex-Mex. Hello, that's not a language. You either speak to me in English or speak to me in Spanish. And they take offense They literally do. I go to the store in Brownsville, I go see my dad. It's like, they take offense if I say, can you stick to one language, please? Because, I'm sorry, my head doesn't go that way. I go one or the other. So, if you can address who drives the curriculum, that is my main question.
Sure. So I think well, the ultimate in accountability is the parents. And the parents are the ones that I think will ultimately drive the curriculum. So in a situation like yours, there would be the option of where to put each child in which school works best for them in terms of would ELL work for one child but not the other? Well, if it does, then
It was the law.
If it doesn't,
It was the law.
Right. So if there were more flexibility, parents would be able to decide which curriculum is best. And I think that's really important. For example, my older brother and I both went to parochial school in El Paso. There's a fantastic magnet school that's now in El Paso. My younger brother's enrolling there next year. He's going to El Paso ISD.
Is that immersion or is it bilingual?
It's not ELL
Oh,
right. So it's so it depends on the needs of each individual child, and I think that ultimately the parents should be able to decide. Different schools will have different curriculum that they can offer, and then the parents choose which is best.
But is
I
our
don't know
goal
if
for
that-
us to learn English? I mean, I went to Italy, and you know
I
what?
see.
People don't speak English, they speak Italian. You're trying to find the train, you better know your Italian as to where you're going. And I guess, to me, when I came here, well, I was born here. My dad came here. He learned English. He learned English because he needed to work. And so to me, if your goal is for us to be one nation, we have to have one language. If we're all speaking many languages, we're gonna be divided. I mean, I see it in the home. So anyway, and before I forget, I wanted to mention the school thing, the technical component. When I was in school, and I don't know how it is, I don't think it's that way now. In high school, I had the last 2 years of my high school, I took technical training, vocational office education. I learned how to do things nobody does anymore. Stenography, nobody does that anymore. But anyway, I learned secretarial. You know why? Because I was thinking, I want to go to college, and I need to find a job so I can pay my way. And I did. I went to a private school, but I worked as I was going to school because I had a skill set in high school. Many people don't have the opportunity. You may say, go to technical school. But if you have financial needs at home, like I did, you don't have that choice. You have to think, family. Okay, food on the table, the luxury of school. Let me think. It's not going to happen. So if you can get your technical training in high school, it prepares you. I mean, it prepared me. My sister didn't do that. I told her, just do it like they're telling you. She was up the creek. She didn't know anything. So I was prepared. She wasn't. So I'm just saying that reality happens. And, you know, if we can get our preparation, and if you go overseas, I studied overseas also. And let me tell you, overseas, I was amazed at these high school graduates going into college. They were so up ahead, all of us here. They knew how to reconcile a bank account. I have an accounting degree. I have a reconcile a bank. They were prepared for the real world. I kept thinking, in America, we're not that way. Anyway.
Let me just give some general comments on what I've heard real quick. Is
Only
that
got a couple minutes.
Yeah, and let me speak to you.
and then I went to Bronzo, born in Houston, but was really raised in Bronzo. Did elementary and junior high at a private school, and then went to high school at a Bronzo ISD school, and then went to God's greatest gift to the state of Texas A&M University. So let me just say that on the broader school choice aspect, you know, that's why school choice gets enacted, so that poor Hispanic students who live in a part of town that is where they have underperforming schools can attend a Northtown school district or school that has better academic preparation. You're talking about curriculum. Yeah, the state sets certain standards on achievement that students have to achieve before they get promoted to the next grade level or they graduate high school.
Like common.
How you get there is up to the district itself. For example, and because I'm biased, I'm a board member there. Jubilee Academic Charter District, they're held to the same accountability standards that public ISDs are held to. However, they are educating the whole child, and the methods that they are using is what's attracting parents to want to enroll their students there. The academic preparation is different, and so in Bronzo specifically, Brownsville ISD is extremely upset, and it's public information, it's a broad argument in town, that they are losing hundreds and hundreds of students every single year to charter districts, including our very own down in Brownsville and across the valley. And so the school meets the same standards. How they educate the child and the information that they're in downloading into the student and the tactics that they use is better preparing the student for higher education. That's what school choice does, and that's the difference with providing school choice when you're talking specifically about curriculum changes and Hispanic students down in the valley.
Lance will get the last word.
Real quickly, so you grew up in the Los Angeles Unified School District.
LA and Brownsville.
Yeah, so I went to school in the LA Unified School District as well through my entire K-12 career. And so, you know, in California, we passed Prop 227 several years ago. You wanted to know about English and immersion and all that. That required students from English language learner backgrounds to be immersed in English. That was what was supposed to happen in the classroom. I did 2 studies for Pacific Research Institute. One looking at Prop 227 and its implementation. I also looked at, did another study that analyzed the teacher preparation programs at state universities in California, because you want to know about curriculum, right? And so, like, you can pass laws and initiatives and that sort of thing, but it's up to the people in the schools who are implementing these things, who are going to actually make or break these laws, and whether you're going to have the outcomes you think. And what it turns out is that in the schools of education in California, the California State University Schools of Ed, which turn out the majority of teachers in our state, they were still teaching bilingual education. And you look at the teaching methodologies that were being used, they were all what we classified as progressive, often openly Marxist teaching methods, promoted by people like Paulo Freire, who anyone who's in education knows that he is a Brazilian Marxist, and his teachings and his methodologies are openly used in the mission statements of state university schools of ed. And so the thing of it is, why is it that we have these good laws and we have such poor implementations? Because the implementers are totally not bought in to these changes. So when we think that we might have success by reforming the public education simply from the top down without any kind of choice outlet, you're wrong. Unless you give people the escape mechanism out of the system that forces these people who do not want to implement the laws, then you're never going to have full and faithful implementation of good laws.
Before we leave to go back out and resume our fight for freedom, we have a couple of special announcements. On April 21st, Texas Public Policy Foundation will have the grand opening of our new building at 901 Congress. Begins at 5 p.m. and everyone is welcome. Please bring your families. On May 5th at 5 p.m., TPPF will be hosting a free speech debate titled Free Speech and the Nonprofit Community, Freedom of Association versus Forced Disclosure. Again, that's on May 5th at 5 p.m. We want to thank everyone for attending.
Real quick before you leave, I'm sorry, just to interject this. If you go to studentswintx.com, studentswintx.com, the Leave It Initiative is advancing a school choice support petition. We just need your first, last name, zip code, and phone number, and we will get into our database. We also have copies here if you just want to show your support and sign our petition. Thank you all very much.
If you want, you can email it. It's kind of hard to find.